Let's take a global look at real estate in the commercial sector, with a focus on Europe. Our guest says we are in the early stages of a steady recovery in real estate. Let's get more from Kieran Farrelly, Chief Investment Officer in Real Estate at Schroders Capital. Kieran, thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Morning, Andy. Great to be here.
Start off with office, would you? And I know we're painting with a broad brush here, but it was pretty traumatic for the office sector, COVID. A lot of people still working at home. Has there been globally a recovery in office valuations?
So look, there's been a very significant adjustment in prices and values. So you're talking 40 to 50% plus when we look across the major developed markets globally. We're certainly seeing, return to work becoming much more normalized. It's really hastened in Asia Pacific, where there are those dense urban environments. So that just brings people to that office space a little quicker. I think what we're really seeing, Andy, is some of that commodity office, some of that oversupply, and really referencing the US in particular there, really starting to flush through the system. So if you want, that highly amenitized, sustainable, real future-proof space, there's actually something of a shortage of that. And high construction costs, high interest costs are curtailing new supply going forward. So it's definitely going in the right direction.
So that's interesting. So for people with existing office properties, that's good news. What are businesses, big premier prestige companies doing, though? Are they still renting the same amount of space in general?
I think on the margins, some of it is reducing. Mm-hmm. They're still growing. Space is still being crowded. I think what you're seeing is a very clear statement of preference. Again, coming back to that amenity provision, ensuring their staff have more communal, collaborative space than perhaps before, and sustainability considerations really taking a lot of precedence.
Can we switch now to what the industry calls logistics? A lot of that being, of course, warehouses. What's going on there? We saw a boom, obviously, during COVID. People were shopping from home. Has that boom continued?
It has, Andy. Look, there's been a bit of oversupply, which is being digested at the moment. But e-commerce penetration rates are lagging, particularly in parts of Europe, for example. So we see some of that oversupply getting taken up fairly quickly. And I think there's something of an obsolescence cycle playing through. So there's going to be shortages of some of that really sustainable, again, future-proof space coming through in the next few years. And we see a very strong demand curve.
Now, we're focusing on commercial real estate here, but can you give us any trends that are occurring in residential globally?
Generally shortages, particularly of mid-market and affordable space. I think we clearly have aging demographics playing through. So again, lots of opportunity to create the space for aging citizens all the way through to sort of care provision and associated healthcare type real estate. So general shortages, the demographics are supportive, urbanization trends are abound. Again, we are short of housing in many markets globally.
It's interesting. And what is the problem here? I know the Economist magazine likes to talk about NIMBYism, especially in Britain. But what is the roadblock to building more housing?
Construction costs. They've really stepped up, particularly through that pandemic period. And again, if we look forward, if there are large-scale rebuilding programs needed in parts of the world, then that will put even more pressure on materials supply chains, for example. You've got a lot of factors at play. So things like increasing household formation, a lot of us living together in smaller household sizes, and again, that densification requirement. So again, the debt finance costs, the general sort of more moderate outlook for the economy. It's all coming together, and we're just not building enough. And again, governments are addressing that in various ways globally. We've seen, for example, in London, where there's affordable housing requirements as part of large-scale developments, and some of that's being relaxed to allow them to become more viable.
That's interesting. They're just allowing them to include fewer affordable units.
Yeah, at the margin. And look, anything that can be done to help support that, the much needed new building programs, there is that support coming through.
And then just finally, what's the trend in hospitality now? We know there's been a backlash over the past few years against Airbnb, for example, not just in Barcelona, but in cities around the world. Are many new hotels being built?
They are. Look, there's a global trend, let's call it experiential. Like, people want that experience, they want to travel. It's actually a real structural trend that the hospitality sector has been growing against. Around Airbnb and the like. Yeah, look, in different guises in different countries, there are, and cities in particular, there are responses to that. So, but look, serviced accommodation, new hotels are absolutely being built, and particularly now we're seeing more business travel coming through, in that post-pandemic, sort of as part of that post-pandemic recovery. We certainly saw a really quick recovery as people wanted to get out, having been, in various locations, being obviously constrained from travel and the like. So markets like Japan, for example, there's been a, really strong rebound, and that's something we were taking advantage of there. Again, serviced accommodation, as well as sort of broader, more typical hotels and the like.
Thank you very much indeed, Kieran.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Kieran Farrelly, Chief Investment Officer in Real Estate at Schroders Capital.